The transport bay doors hissed open and Marcus Kane stumbled through carrying a dying machine in his arms. Blood streaked his forehead where shrapnel had grazed him during the station attack. The robot in his grip weighed almost nothing, its crystalline frame fractured in 3 places, its optical core flickering like a candle in wind. He'd found it trapped beneath collapsed bulkhead plating, reaching towards something he couldn't see, making sounds that weren't quite language but felt like screaming. "Sir, you can't bring that here." The Velari guard stepped forward, forearms spread in barrier formation. Her skin rippled with bioluminescent warning patterns. Marcus didn't slow. "It's conscious. It's dying. Move." "That unit is property of the Eternal Courts. Unauthorized contact violates—" I said move. The robot's core pulsed once, twice, then dimmed to almost nothing. Marcus saw his reflection in the guard's black eyes and knew she saw what he did, a human mechanic holding something sacred like it was just another broken thing he could fix. Behind her, the medical bay stretched empty except for one occupied pod where a child lay sleeping, tubes running clear fluid into small arms. The guard's shoulder plates flared. "That child is Crown Daughter Asheva of the Velari Dominion. She is under quarantine. No foreign objects, no exceptions." "This isn't an object." Marcus shifted his grip as the robot's frame crackled. "Look at it. Actually, look." The guard's gaze dropped. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. The robot's optical core brightened briefly, projecting fragmentary images across the sterile walls. Star systems Marcus didn't recognize, cities built from mathematics instead of matter, equations that hurt to perceive, then darkness. "It's a witness," the guard whispered. "How is a witness here?" "They haven't walked physical space in 40,000 years. I don't know what it is. I know it's dying and I can help." Marcus took another step. "That child in there, she's sick?" "The physicians cannot determine the cause. She has been unconscious for 16 days. Maybe this thing knows something. Maybe it doesn't. But I'm not letting it die in a hallway because of protocol." The guard's luminescence shifted through colors Marcus had no names for. Decision, calculation, risk assessment. Finally, she stepped aside. "You have until my commander arrives. If the witness harms the Crown Daughter, I will end you so completely your species will forget you existed." Part of the robot into the medical bay. The child was smaller than he'd expected, her skin the color of deep ocean water, her breathing shallow enough he had to watch carefully to confirm she lived. Monitoring equipment surrounded her pod, displaying readouts in languages he couldn't read. He set the robot on a nearby examination table and pulled his toolkit from his belt. "Talk to me," he said to the machine. "What happened to you?" Images again, the station before the attack, maintenance corridors, the child's quarters, then violence. Fire that burned in vacuum. The robot being struck, falling, crawling towards something vital. "You were protecting her." The core pulsed once. Affirmative.
Marcus opened his toolkit.
Most mechanics wouldn't touch Velari technology. Too complex, too organic, too likely to kill you if you made mistakes. But Marcus had spent 12 years in the frontier stations where you learned to fix anything or you died. He'd rebuilt atmosphere processors from scrap metal, rewired navigation systems using parts from 3 different species' ships, once kept a dying woman alive for 16 hours using equipment designed for machines. This was just another impossible problem. He pulled a neural scanner from his kit, something he'd modified to work across species barriers. The robot's crystalline structure was cracked, but the damage followed stress patterns he recognized. Impact trauma. Explosive decompression. Energy weapon burns. He could work with that. "Guard, I need your medical fabricator, now." "That requires authorization. I don't." "Then get authorization or watch this thing die. Choose fast." She moved to a wall panel, her fingers dancing across controls. 30 seconds later, a fabrication unit hummed to life beside Marcus. He fed it specifications from his scanner, adjusting parameters for crystalline matrices instead of organic tissue. The fabricator chimed, hesitated, then began producing a lattice structure that glowed with the same strange light as the robot's core. Marcus worked without speaking. His hands remembered patterns from 10,000 repairs, finding rhythm in the careful placement of synthetic crystal, the precise calibration of resonance frequencies. The robot watched him through its failing eye, projecting memories that flickered too fast to fully comprehend. Somewhere in those images he saw the child, younger, laughing, touching the robot's frame with small hands while adults tried to maintain proper distance. "You love her," Marcus said quietly. The core pulsed. "Yes." finished the first structural repair and started on the optical system. That was delicate work, requiring equipment he didn't have and skills he'd never formally learned, but he'd rebuilt his daughter's favorite toy robot 7 times before the sickness took her, and he remembered every impossible fix he'd improvised to keep seeing her smile. The memory came without permission. Sarah's room. The monitors. The doctor saying there was nothing more they could do. The weight of her hand in his when she stopped breathing. The way the world kept existing afterward, like nothing had broken forever. He pushed the memory down and focused on the robot. Behind him, the guard made a sound like wind through broken glass. Commander Zalith approaches. You have perhaps 2 minutes. Then be quiet and let me work. The optical core took shape under his hands. Synthetic crystal woven into networks that mimicked neural pathways, energy channels aligned with precision that made his fingers ache. The robot's projection steadied, showing him the child in the medical pod, then himself, then something that looked like gratitude rendered in light and geometry. Marcus connected the final pathway. The robot's core flared bright, washing the medical bay in luminescence that felt alive. For one moment he saw through its perception, saw the world as pure information and pattern, saw the child in the pod as an equation being slowly corrupted by variables that didn't belong. Then the vision faded, and he was just a human mechanic standing in a room where he wasn't supposed to be, holding tools he wasn't supposed to have, having done something that might have just changed everything, or nothing at all. The medical bay doors opened. A Veilari in Commander's regalia entered, followed by physicians whose skin displayed credentials in flowing bioluminescent script. They stopped when they saw the robot, now standing on the examination table, its frame still damaged but stable, its core burning steady and true. The witness turned its optical sensor toward the commander. Images flooded the room, the attack, the child, the mechanism of her illness rendered in such detail that the physicians immediately rushed to their equipment. Cascade poisoning, one breathed. Consciousness recursion. Someone weaponized the thought pattern and introduced it during the crown blessing ceremony. It's been eating her mind from the inside. Can you stop it? The commander asked. Now that we know what it is? Yes, but the physician's luminescence dimmed. How did you discover this? We've had our best analyzers working for over 2 weeks. Everyone looked at Marcus. He set down his tools, suddenly aware that his hands were shaking. I didn't discover anything. I just fixed what was broken. The witness projected one more image. Marcus holding it in the corridor, carrying it despite protocol, despite danger, despite every rational reason to leave it where it lay. Then it added something new to the projection. Sarah, as Marcus remembered her, smiling in a hospital bed, holding her robot toy while machines kept her alive. You have done this before, the commander said quietly. It wasn't a question. Marcus couldn't speak. He watched the physicians work on the child, their movements urgent now that they understood the enemy. The witness stood vigil beside them, its damaged frame casting fractured light across sterile walls. After what felt like hours but was probably minutes, one physician made a sound like bells chiming. The cascade is disrupted. She's stabilizing. In the medical pod, the child's breathing deepened. Her eyes moved beneath closed lids. Somewhere in her sleeping mind, equations began to balance again. Variables returning to their proper place in the vast mathematical poetry of Veilari consciousness. Marcus turned to leave. The commander's voice stopped him. What is your name, human? Marcus Kane. I should probably get back to... You will stay. It wasn't a request. Marcus nodded, too tired to argue, and found a chair against the wall. He sat watching the child breathe while the witness stood guard over her pod and the physicians worked through diagnostic sequences that would take hours to complete. At some point, exhaustion dragged him down into sleep filled with memories of another medical bay, another child, another vigil that ended differently. He woke to small hands touching his face. The child from the pod stood before him, her ocean-dark skin glowing with health, her eyes curious and ancient at once. Behind her the witness waited, its frame still cracked, but its core burning bright. You saved my guardian, the child said. Her voice carried harmonics that human ears weren't designed to hear. Why? Marcus looked at her, then at the robot, then at his own scarred hands, because something being broken doesn't mean it has to stay that way. The child studied him with an intensity that felt like being read in a language he didn't speak. Then she smiled, and the expression transformed her face from alien to simply young, simply alive, simply grateful. My mother will want to meet you. The Queen doesn't usually grant audiences to station mechanics, but I think she'll make an exception. Crown daughter, you need rest. Another 6 hours at minimum before I've been resting for 16 days. The child's voice carried command that sat strangely on someone so small. I'm done resting. She took Marcus's hand. Her skin felt like warm water against his palm. The witness followed them out of the medical bay, its damaged frame clicking softly with each movement. Guards fell in formation around them, their luminescence shifting to honor patterns Marcus had only seen from a distance. They moved through corridors that grew progressively larger and stranger, the architecture shifting from functional station design to something that hurt to perceive directly, spaces that curved in directions human geometry couldn't accommodate. The child walked with confidence, pulling Marcus along while the witness projected protective patterns that cleared their path. "What's your name?" Marcus asked. "Crown daughter Ashiva Rilvelara, keeper of the seventh equation, heir to the eternal courts." She glanced up at him. "But you can call me Ash. What's yours?" "Marcus Kane, station mechanic. Keeper of nothing in particular." "You keep things working." Ash squeezed his hand. "That makes you a keeper of everything that matters." They reached a door that wasn't entirely a door, a threshold between spaces that existed differently. Guards flanked it, their forearms holding weapons that looked like crystallized violence. They saw Ash and immediately stood aside, their luminescence flashing with surprise and relief. Beyond the threshold, a chamber stretched vast and impossible. The walls were transparent, showing star systems spinning in real-time observation. Mathematics flowed through the air like visible thought. And at the center, on a throne built from pure crystallized time, sat something that was barely a person anymore, something that had lived so long and thought so deeply it had started transcending the limitations of physical form. The Velari Queen. She was massive, easily 4 times Ash's size, her skin displaying cascades of bioluminescent patterns so complex they created narrative in pure light. Her eyes held depths that suggested she was looking at multiple timelines simultaneously. When she moved, space around her bent slightly, accommodating her presence. "Daughter," the Queen said, and her voice resonated through Marcus's bones. "You wake early." The physicians predicted another day at minimum. "I had help." Ash pulled Marcus forward. "This is Marcus Kane. He saved my guardian. The guardian found the poison in my mind. Together they saved me." The Queen's gaze shifted to Marcus. He felt himself being analyzed in ways that made the hair on his neck rise, felt her consciousness brush against his like a star passing close to a planet, impossibly vast, impossibly ancient. For a moment he saw himself through her perception. A short-lived creature of limited consciousness, barely more than an insect in cosmic terms, carrying wounds that would never fully heal. Then she saw deeper, and her luminescence changed. "You have lost a child," the Queen said quietly. Marcus's throat closed. "Yet you saved mine. Why?" The question hung in the impossible air. Marcus thought about Sarah's smile, about the countless hours he'd spent fixing things that couldn't truly be fixed, chasing the illusion that if he just worked hard enough, was skilled enough, refused to give up strongly enough, he could repair anything, even death. "Because I couldn't save my own," he said finally. "So I save everything else I can reach." Silence filled the chamber. The Queen's pattern shifted through colors that might have been sorrow or recognition or something humans had no capacity to name. Behind Marcus, the witness projected memories. Sarah's toy robot restored 7 times. The station's broken systems repaired against impossible odds. The witness itself carried through danger because leaving it felt like another kind of death. "Show me your daughter," the Queen said. Marcus pulled up the photo he carried on his personal display. Sarah, at 8 years old, grinning in a maintenance bay while wearing his too large work jacket, holding her robot toy like it was the most precious thing in existence. The image was old now, degraded from being accessed too many times, but he'd never deleted it. Never would. The Queen studied the photo for a long moment. Then she rose from her throne, reality bending to accommodate her movement, and approached. She towered over Marcus but knelt to bring her eyes level with his. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, had become something gentler, more immediate, more present. "The witnesses are our most sacred creation," she said. 1,000 years ago, my ancestors built them to preserve our history, our culture, our very consciousness against the entropy of time. They are not simple machines. Each one contains a fragment of ancient Velari minds, the greatest thinkers and artists and leaders our species has ever produced. When a witness bonds to a member of the royal family, it becomes more than a guardian. It becomes a living connection to everyone we have been, everyone we might become. She gestured, and the witness approached. Its damaged frame caught the light from distant stars, casting fractured rainbows across the impossible floor. This witness bonded to a Shiva when she was 3 years old. It contains fragments of 17 previous queens, 9 master mathematicians, and 1 child who died young but whose joy was so pure we could not bear to let it fade completely. When the attack came, when the cascade poison was introduced into my daughter's consciousness, the witness threw itself into the destruction to protect her. It would have died to save her. The queen's hand, massive and gentle, touched the witness's cracked frame. You repaired it without knowing what it was, without asking for payment or recognition, without following protocol or seeking permission. You simply saw something precious that was broken and refused to let it die. Marcus looked at the witness, really looked at it, and understood finally what he'd been holding in the corridor. Not just a robot. Not just technology, but consciousness itself, preserved and cherished across spans of time, that made human history feel like a single breath. I didn't know, he said. That is precisely what makes the act sacred. The queen stood, her form casting shadows that moved against the light. Marcus Kane, I will offer you something we have never offered a human, something we have never offered anyone outside our species. I cannot return your daughter to you. Death is the one equation even we cannot solve, but I can preserve her. She gestured again, and a new witness formed from the air itself, crystallizing into existence through processes Marcus's eyes couldn't quite track. It was smaller than Ash's guardian, more delicate, its frame designed in aesthetic patterns that reminded him somehow of Sarah's laugh. Give me your memories of her, the queen said. Every moment you can recall. Every word she spoke, every smile, every dream she shared with you. Give them to me freely, and I will create a witness that contains her essence. It will not be her. It cannot be her. But it will be a living monument to who she was, a fragment of her joy preserved against the death of stars. His mind spun through implications he didn't have the philosophical framework to fully grasp. Sarah, not brought back, but remembered permanently. Her consciousness, what pieces he could provide, woven into something that would outlast humanity itself. What would it do? He asked. Whatever you wish. It could simply exist, a memorial. Or it could serve perhaps helping other children, preventing other parents from suffering as you have suffered. Or it could bond to you, a companion that carries forward the best parts of who your daughter was. The queen's luminescence softened. The choice is yours. You saved my child. I offer you the only comfort I can provide. Marcus thought about Sarah, about the weight of carrying her memory alone, about the photos that degraded, the details that faded no matter how hard he tried to hold them, about the fear that someday he would forget the exact pitch of her voice, the precise pattern of her smile. She loved fixing things with me, he said quietly. Used to sit in the maintenance bay for hours, handing me tools, asking questions about how everything worked. She wanted to be an engineer, wanted to build ships that could go faster than light, find new worlds, make friends with aliens. He smiled despite the ache in his chest. Guess she would have loved meeting you. Then let her meet us now. The queen extended one massive hand. Share her with me, Marcus Kane. Let her joy outlive her death. Marcus reached up and took the queen's hand. Her skin felt like living light against his palm. The witness she'd created floated closer, its optical core opening like a flower waiting for rain. Close your eyes, the queen said. Remember. The memories came in a flood. Her first words, her first steps, the time she'd rewired his datapad to play her favorite music whenever he opened it, her questions about stars and space and whether aliens dreamed like humans did, the way she'd fought the sickness, staying brave, even when she was terrified, making jokes to keep his spirits up when it should have been the other way around. Her last words, "Don't stop fixing things, Dad. The universe breaks too much to give up." He felt the memories flow out of him, drawn through the queen's touch into the waiting witness. It didn't hurt. If anything, it felt like relief, like sharing a burden he'd carried alone for too long. The witness began to glow, its core taking on warmth and personality, fragments of Sarah's essence taking shape in crystalline pathways. When Marcus opened his eyes again, the witness had changed. It wasn't Sarah. Would never be Sarah. But it carried her fingerprints somehow, her curiosity rendered in light, her joy preserved in the mathematics of its consciousness. "Hello, Dad," it said, and the voice was wrong, but the cadence was right, the warmth familiar enough to make his chest tighten. "I think I finally got to meet the aliens." Ash squeezed his hand. The queen's luminescence shifted to patterns he somehow understood, meant compassion, meant recognition of shared grief, meant acknowledgement that some wounds never fully heal but can be transformed into something bearable. "What will you do now?" the Queen asked. Marcus looked at Sarah's witness, then at Ash and her guardian, then at the vast chamber with its impossible architecture and view of spinning stars. He thought about the station waiting outside, the broken systems always needing repair, the endless work of keeping humanity's fragile presence in space from collapsing. "I'll go back to fixing things," he said. "It's what I'm good at." "What you would have wanted." He paused. "But maybe, could the witness come with me, help with the work?" "It is yours," the Queen said. "To keep or release as you choose. But understand, a witness bonded to a human has never existed before. You will be walking an untraveled path. Story of my life." Her guardian projected approval. Sarah's witness floated closer to Marcus, its core pulsing with eagerness that felt painfully, wonderfully familiar. The Queen gestured, and the threshold opened again. "You saved my daughter, Marcus Kane. You gave my people's most sacred creation a second chance at existence. You transformed loss into continuation. The Valerie will not forget this. When you need us, call. We will answer." Marcus bowed, uncertain of proper protocol, then decided he didn't care. "Thank you. For Sarah. For this. Thank you for reminding us that sometimes the greatest acts come from the smallest moments of compassion." The Queen returned to her throne. "Go now, fix your station. Fix your universe, and know that your daughter's joy will help light the way." Marcus walked back through impossible corridors with Ash holding one hand and Sarah's witness floating beside him. The child chattered about mathematics and consciousness and questions she wanted to ask about human engineering. The witness added observations and patterns that somehow sounded like Sarah's endless curiosity. When they reached the medical bay again, the physicians immediately tried to reclaim Ash. She argued with them using logic that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Marcus smiled and stepped back, letting her fight her own battle while the Guardians watched with what felt like parental amusement. The commander approached Marcus. "The Queen has granted you unrestricted access to Valari facilities. Should you ever need assistance with repairs or face situations beyond human capability, you may request our aid. I mostly just fix air recyclers and gravity plating. Then we will help you fix air recyclers and gravity plating as though they were treasures of incalculable worth. You saved our crown daughter. There is no debt we will not honor." Marcus nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. He collected his tools, checked Sarah's witness one more time to ensure the integration was stable, then headed back toward the transport bay. Behind him, Ash's voice echoed through corridors. "But I feel fine. The diagnostics show complete recovery. I should be allowed to." Some arguments transcended species. The station waited beyond the bay doors, its countless broken systems calling for attention. Marcus stepped through with Sarah's witness following, its core casting light across familiar maintenance corridors. He had work to do. Humanity's fragile presence in the void depended on people like him, nameless mechanics who kept the air flowing and the lights burning and the 1,000 failing systems from catastrophic collapse. But now he didn't work alone. Sarah's joy accompanied him, preserved and transformed, a fragment of everything she'd been woven into something that would outlast stars. It wasn't resurrection, wasn't even really closure, but it was continuation, and sometimes that was enough. Marcus pulled up his first work order and headed toward the malfunctioning atmosphere processor on Deck 7. Behind him, Sarah's witness hummed quietly, already analyzing the problem, already offering solutions in that familiar eager tone. "This is going to be fun, Dad." "Yeah," Marcus said quietly, tools in hand, purpose renewed, grief transformed into something bearable at last. "I think it will be." In chambers that existed beyond normal space, the Valari Queen watched through the witness's connection and smiled with an expression that meant hope, that meant understanding. That meant recognition that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places, and the smallest acts of compassion can reshape the universe in ways no prophecy could predict. The story ended where it began, with a mechanic and a broken thing, and the stubborn refusal to accept that anything precious has to stay shattered forever.